Yes, and the players are now getting ready for the stage. And because this is Leonardo's first time on stage, I'm just going to have a quick look at their Pokemon. So Leonardo has... Both players are running quite standard teams. I think we'll just let you wait a little bit longer before we spoil their teams. Although I think everyone knows what Eric is running. But here are the list of achievements from both players. And you can see so much top cuts, champions, finalists. This is just their recent achievements. There's way more going down history.
Yeah, on Leonardo's end, you can really see how much online practice he's been getting over the last few years. Yeah, really consistent results in the Players' Cups that we had over lockdown, and the Global Exhibition Champion as well, where there's obviously so many players playing in that kind of best-of-one format. He's done so well there. And obviously, on Eric's end, you were right, Zoe, EUIC Champion. How can we forget? That's such an incredible achievement. It's such a huge tournament.
Yes, and also at Utrecht, wasn't he undefeated? I'm pretty sure he was undefeated on day 2. I just remember he was undefeated at
some point
before becoming the champion. So that's really, a very scary testament to his skill as a player.
Absolutely, yeah. Really scary player to go up against. I think, and Eric's one of those players, I think, who plays quite standard teams, but and kind of very much what is kind of generally good and what people consider good in the format. But he's just such a consistent player that he doesn't need to play with any sort of surprise. He just does so consistently well, makes hardly any mistakes kind of going into his games. So he's just really scary to go up against, and people need to really rely on the plans that they've got.
And here we've got Leonardo's team on screen of Fluttermane, King Gambit, Chen Pao, Gyarados, Great Tusk, and Dragonite. So mostly physical attackers besides the Fluttermane. So that Chen Pao just really supporting the rest of its team, dealing out really, really big physical moves. And the Fluttermane, being choice specs, probably won't need any sort of boost. I wonder, does not carry Psyshock, which I think some Fluttermanes do carry with a Chen Pao team, but choice specs Fluttermane, really, really scary Pokemon. Some Fluttermanes do choose to carry booster energy, but I think with choice specs, you can always switch it out and switch back in to allow yourself to reset and still keep that attack boost.
I think on that King Gambit, instead of having Sucker Punch twice, I think there is actually that Iron Head on there as well. So there is a steal move for that King Gambit on that end. But however, on Eric's side, here is his team as well. For anyone who needs a refresher from yesterday, Fluttermane, Amoonguss, Chi-Yu, Gyarados, Tinglu, and the Iron Hands. Again, with that Volt Switch we were talking about, Zoe.
Oh yeah, the Volt Switch paired up with the Gyarados and the Amoonguss is really, really good at keeping the whole team just nice and healthy. And Gyarados switching in, dropping the Intimidate, coming back out, Amoonguss coming in, pollen puffing, getting the health back from the Regenerator. So we'll probably be expecting to see a lot of switches in this game. Just a lot of masterful positioning from both players, just trying to get their Pokemon into the right place at the right time to deal that that little bit of damage to make sure that playing safe and taking the necessary KOs.
100%. Now something on Eric's team it's a little bit more kind of developing in the matchup at the moment is the Clear Smog on Amoonguss, where so many Amoonguss usually just carry Protect in that slot. Clear Smog seems to be a lot more common now at the moment. Now, looking at Leonardo's team, you do have some options that could get potentially some stat boosts around there, where you could reset, say, your own speed drops from the opposing Gyarados' Icy Wind, or say if the King Gambit is terrestrialized into the Fire type, any sort of Defiant boost that it's got, you can also reset. And generally for other matchups, for Dondozo, it makes it a lot more safer. For opposing Chi, you can get rid of their nasty plot boost, so a really nice option.
Yeah, and so please show your support for these players. We've got our poll coming up. Looks like it's actually quite fairly even. Everyone thinking, yeah, this is a very even match. I don't even know who's going to be the winner by the end of this round.
Yeah, Leonardo has a slightly better record at the moment in 10-3, and Eric is on the 9-4. But Eric probably does have a little bit more in terms of achievements and accolades than Leonardo does. But Leonardo is a little bit more new to the scene, so we don't know how his future career is going to pan out. It could be potentially even greater than Eric's in the future at the moment. So who do you think is going to win? Who is your favorite, or who do you think has your favorite name? Whatever you want to vote for, this vote will be locked before the start of the game. So we'll see who does come out on top by the end.
Both players have really, really, very evenly matched teams. I don't think any player has a distinct advantage over the other. So this is going to be a really, really cool match to see. I'm just wondering, what do you think we would be expecting to see from this, David?
Yeah, it's a great question. When you look at the two teams, they're quite balanced in a way. Leonardo is has more offensive options, especially on his end, whereas Eric, I think, is going to be much more of a positioning game. Leonardo's Chien-Pao Dragonite is really a standout duo for me, where, and especially with that choice band as well, where Extreme Speed can just do so much damage with the Terra normal. But the players are going to decide that for us at the moment. It's that Chien-Pao and Flutter Mane for Leonardo, and the Iron Hands Amoonguss for Eric.
So this Chien-Pao on the field is going to be lowering the defense of all Pokemon on the field, which it's not going to help out its partner Flutter Mane, but it might actually be helping out the Iron Hands that it's staring down. This Iron Hands can go for a fake out into the Chien-Pao. Of course, you know, being the first turn, Chien-Pao does carry Protect. The Chien-Pao can simply just go for a Protect to stall out that first turn of fake out.
Yeah, so Amoonguss is obviously being threatened by that Ice type. So yeah, kind of obvious play from Eric would be, you know, fake out Chien-Pao, break Sash, and then maybe go for a Spore or something, because there's not too much that it's been threatened by from the Flutter Mane itself, due to Amoonguss is just naturally high bulk. So Eric must be feeling fairly on the safer end here. One option he could do potentially is switch out his Iron Hands, expecting maybe something that's a bit defensive into the Gyarados, to maybe lower the attack stat of the Chien-Pao, which does eventually come in as well.
This Amoonguss is quite free to go for a Spore onto the Flutter Mane, because the Flutter Mane does not have substitute, unlike the booster energy or the Life Orb variants that we've seen. We're going to see a Terra come out immediately on turn 1, and it is going to be that Chien-Pao, so indicating it did not go for a Protect, or going for the Ghost just to try and dodge that fake out. But of course, now that the Iron Hands has switched out into the Gyarados, it's not going to get faked out.
Okay, so yeah, exactly, predicting the fake out. So Terra is already revealed on Leonardo's end, but it also seems revealed on Eric's end too. So potentially even kind of calling the Ghost Terra and plus Ice Spinner even into the Amoonguss, and goes for the Terra Water, which looks like a really nice option to Leonardo's team. But first, Moonblast from the Flutter Mane, doing over 50% to this bulky Gyarados, as Ice Spinner now actually just doubles up into it, and Gyarados just lives on a slither of health and does heal up a little bit more with the Aguave Berry on the Gyarados.
Wow, without that Intimidate, that Gyarados definitely would not have survived the turn. But now this Flutter Mane is going to be put to sleep for all of its troubles. And Amoonguss is actually in a really, really good position here. It's now Terra Water, so it will not be taking any form of super effective damage from this Chien-Pao, which is already at -1. So Amoonguss is quite free to just start sporing that slot. And looking at Leonardo's team, he doesn't actually have anything that can switch in to a Spore.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. There's kind of no like safety goggles or anything on his team that so many players do have on their team. So Waterfall comes out and does a huge chunk to that Flutter Mane, actually. And Amoonguss does actually kind of cancel out a lot of that damage that Flutter Mane did previously, and heals up this bulky Gyarados really significantly. So the Chien-Pao doesn't really end up doing much at all this turn.
All that hard work from Leonardo just bringing down that Gyarados and coming so close to knocking it out. But of course, the Gyarados being able to hang on is now actually really healthy. And the Flutter Mane has taken its first turn of sleep, so it might be waking up. But Leonardo is going to withdraw the Flutter Mane, wanting to save it for another turn. And the Dragonite is going to come out.
So yes, Dragonite is obviously going to resist those water moves now, so any Gyarados shenanigans into that slot are going to be taken a bit better, but let's see if what Eric's decided to do. It is that Waterfall still, which does hit it, and breaking the multi-scale on this Dragonite at the moment. Spore into the protecting Chien-Pao, so a nice read from Leonardo there. He is now able to kind of position his Dragonite into a position where it's now threatening a lot of damage with its Choice Band, extreme speeds, and boosted by the Sword of Ruin for the Chien-Pao next to it.
The Choice Band, the Terra Normal Dragonite, not as common as the Terra Flying Terra Blast Dragonite, but this Dragonite also carries Facade, but unfortunately, if it gets put to sleep, it won't be able to move, so it cannot make use of that Facade. But I wonder how much damage that Terra Normal... Oh, it's actually my mistake. I forgot the Chien-Pao already went for the Terra, so this Dragonite cannot go for a... Ooh, a critical hit onto it. I wonder if... I think with the Citrus Berry, getting Amoonguss back to, restoring a nice chunk of health, I think that Dragonite will not be able to knock it out. Oh, it does!
Oh, with the Aerial Ace, that is looking like that might be enough, yes. So, a nice reliable flying move that Dragonite does have, very much on the lower power side, but when you're already a flying type, you don't want to Terastallize into the flying type, then Aerial Ace is a nice option to secure a KO very quickly, and Leonardo did that very effectively too.
It looks like this is Leonardo's answer to Amoonguss, just hit it and knock it out.
Yes, that's some great advice, I'd say. Hit the Amoonguss and knock it out, to be honest, because like otherwise it is going to spore a lot of your team. And as we can see, this Fluttermane in the back is fairly asleep. Tavern taken one turn, and it might not wake up for another turn. But at the moment, Eric has just positioned his Iron Hand, so he does have a lot of fake-out pressure coming out this turn, but not into this Ghost Terror Qian Pao. Leonardo does switch out the Dragonite into the Fluttermane, so let's see what happens next.
Ooh, a nice spinner coming off from that Qian Pao into the Fluttermane is not enough to take the knockout, doing, you know, an average, a good amount of damage, but the Fluttermane that just switched in is going to get knocked out from the Moonblast. Perhaps Leonardo purposely switched it in just to absorb that attack and allow himself, because the Fluttermane was fast asleep, and I think it probably, I think it had one turn of sleep, but you know the chances of it waking up the next turn was pretty similar. Maybe Leonardo just wanting that free switch into the Great Tusk.
Yeah, the Great Tusk that's coming in now is Choice Scarf, which we've seen a lot of today and yesterday. So it is going to be actually outspeeding the Fluttermane on the other side, which is a lot of reasons why a lot of people are going to that Choice Scarf as an option. Now, going to this turn, the Iron Hands has used up its Fake Out option, and I believe neither of these Pokemon on the other side here have too much options to be able to take a lot of these hits, especially how low this Fluttermane is. The Fluttermane can protect, as it's the booster energy set for Eric's end, but it is in range of kind of anything at the moment, and with no kind of priority attacks to kind of pick things off, Eric needs to position something here to be able to try and survive this turn.
Gyarados coming in a really good switch for Eric on his side, because the Great Tusk is Choice Scarf, so it is going to be Choice Locked, and if it chooses to lock into the Earthquake, the Gyarados is going to be safe as long as the Great Tusk remains on the field and does not switch out to reset its moves. But the Great Tusk wisely choosing to go for the Rock Slide, recognizing that there's potentially a switch out into the Gyarados coming in, and you know both were taking chip damage, but neither flinching.
Eric really comes out on top, actually, after that. Even though the Gyarados does take super effective rock-type damage, Qian Pao goes on the defensive and with kind of no paying off at all, really, as the Iron Hands is just looking really healthy thanks to that Drain Punch ability. But going into the following turn, this Qian Pao is still offering up a lot of offensive pressure. Although after a couple of Intimidates now, it's not going to be doing as much damage as it was before. The question is, doesn't this Gyarados survive an onslaught of the Rock Slide and an Ice Spinner, for instance? Because on Eric's end, there's no Protect there, and it might just kind of go down fairly quickly. But first, it looks like Great Tusk is actually switching right back out into the Dragonite again.
This Dragonite with this Choice Band is now able to reset its moves, and Ice Spinner coming out doing, you know, an okay amount of damage considering it's at -2. I was expecting a little bit less, but ooh, a Thunder Wave. With the Facade, that might be a little dangerous. But of course, the Dragonite does have to try and break through the Thunder Wave, and it's also going to be quite slow now with its speed half by that paralysis. Qian Pao is going to go down to the Iron Hands, so leaving Leonardo down to his last two Pokemon.
Well, yeah, so that was such a call from Eric there, because he was Thunder Waving a ground type Great Tusk there. So it was really excellent to be able to recognize how Leonardo was either going to terrestrialize his... Well, no, he couldn't tear it because the Qian Pao's already turned it, but he was basically just calling a switch.
Yeah.
And he called it expertly and got that Thunder Wave onto a Dragonite, which is huge. But as you mentioned, Zoe, that does now power up the Facade. So if Dragonite can survive a hit and Facade something at the moment, it's particularly its Iron Hands, which used to be so bulky, that could do a heap of damage.
Yeah, this Great Tusk also being next to this Dragonite, which hasn't gone for Terra, which means it keeps its flying type. The Great Tusk is free to go for an Earthquake, but the Fluttermane switching in. So fantastic call from Eric, switching in the Fluttermane and being immune to that extreme speed that's coming out. And now that Fluttermane is looking quite nice, and the Gyarados is going to switch in, which means that the Great Tusk being locked into Headlong Rush cannot actually hit the Gyarados anymore.
No, but you see a critical hit on the Headlong Rush there. Eric not looking too happy about that. Maybe Iron Hands can survive it. So anyway, Gyarados does come back in here. The Dragonite also kind of choice locked into the extreme speed. It has an obvious target here into this Gyarados, and especially with two KOs. There's no switching that Eric can do at the moment, so it's just the protect from the Fluttermane here. So it's not going to be able to take a Headlong Rush from this Great Tusk right now. Oh
yes, good call. I actually missed the fact that it was a critical hit, and I thought, oh, that did a lot of damage for a Headlong Rush. But the Dragonite, I think, didn't get paralyzed.
Yeah, got fully
paralyzed.
paralyzed.
Yep. Oh, that was very unfortunate. The Waterfall is going to knock out this Great Tusk. So actually, Dragonite, now that it's locked into the extreme speed, can no longer hit this Fluttermane. So Eric, after a little bit of bad luck, also got a bit of good luck with the Dragonite getting paralyzed and is going to take this game on.
Yeah, that completely flipped the game on its head right there. Like, getting paralyzed there meant the Dragonite could not check this Gyarados, and if it had not got fully powered, the Great Tusk would still be hit around to headlong rush this Flutter Mane for a KO. So absolutely huge getting that Thunder Wave onto that Dragonite earlier, as Eric now takes the first game of this final round of the Day 2 Swiss.
That was such a close game. It could have gone either way. You know, had the paralysis not gone in, not happened, Leonardo could have taken that game. And had the critical hit not happened on that Iron Hands, then Eric could have taken the game a lot earlier. So really, really cool game. And I wonder what sort of adjustments these players will be making for game 2.
Yeah, we saw Eric kind of just position excellently. I love the way he was using the Intimidate on the Gyarados, just the bulk and the coverage of his Iron Hands really well, and the Amoonguss going for that Terra Water as well to be able to just dish out spores onto the Flutter Mane, etc. Seemed really effective in slowing down Leonardo's more offensively paced team. So I feel like Eric can probably go with kind of the same strategy this time, I feel like. There's, especially as he got like a critical hit with his Iron Hands, and he made a lot of great calls there. It's definitely on Leonardo, or especially having taken the loss, to be able to maybe adjust a few little things here. I think something I'd like to see him maybe not do is Terra his Pokemon so early. As I think that just kind of reduced his options kind of going forward there, where maybe something like the Choice Band, the normal Terra on the Dragonite might have been quite useful, or the Terra into the Fire for the Great Tusk might have been quite useful too. So just keeping those options open for him I think is something that I would like to see him do maybe in this game too.
Indeed, that Terra Ghost turn 1 from Leonardo, trying to dodge that fake out from the Iron Hands, but didn't really work because the Iron Hands then switched out immediately for a Gyarados. And I think for Eric in that last round, last game, the Gyarados was actually really, really helpful. Just switching in and out, it took really big damage, I think, switching in. But then with the Citrus Berry and also with its partner Amoonguss going for a Pollen Puff, it was able to go back into the green and then continue switching in and out, even getting off a Thunder Wave, which proved to be critical because that Dragonite was fully paralyzed and couldn't get an extreme speed off.
Yeah, and when you look at Leonardo's team, you've got kind of no electric type moves really. I don't think there's any, on his team to kind of hit a Gyarados. So Gyarados is such a great bring for Eric. And on top of that, I can see why he goes for the Terra Water on the Amoonguss, because one, there's no electric moves to hit it, and there's no grass moves either. So as two pieces to kind of be really pivoting around in those water types, Eric, I feel like, really has the advantage in this matchup.
Yeah, because in a lot of player teams we see, there's always safety goals on Heracross, but we are going to go straight into game 2. Amoonguss and Iron Hands, the same leads, but Gyarados and Great Tusk. So a switch up from Leonardo and dropping that Intimidate onto the Iron Hands, which is going to be really, really useful because it had such high attack.
Yeah, I like this as well. And the Gyarados on this side as well, obviously weak to the electric on Iron Hands' side. I think if you Terra into the Poison type, it looks actually really good into Eric's team, assuming he hasn't brought the Ting Lu. There's not a lot, actually, that would then hit it really at all in this matchup. So a really good lead, I think, for him at the moment. And I think it offers him a little bit more offensive capability in this first turn, at least.
The Gyarados does carry Taunt, but it is going to get faked out by this Iron Hands for its trouble. Great Tusk going for Rock Slide, just trying to fish for a flinch and getting critical here. I don't know which Pokemon, on the Amoonguss, but the Amoonguss is able to get the Spore off, and now the Gyarados, being fast asleep, is unable to shut down the Amoonguss with Taunt.
Yeah, no, getting flinched, and yes, they're showing how Safety Goggles is an excellent item on most Gyarados, but not this one as it's Citrus Berry, so it does take a nap. So it's not looking particularly useful right now, but we can see Leonardo kind of considering the Terra Poison on this Gyarados, so it might stick around for a little bit longer. However, we wouldn't be surprised on Eric's end to maybe just not target it this turn, because you know it's going to be guaranteed to take a turn of sleep, and Leonardo has now been forced to kind of go for that Terra. So let's see if Eric has kind of read into this in this following turn.
This Amoonguss is just so free to start sporing because now there's no Taunt danger coming off from the Gyarados. But there is a Rock Slide danger of getting flinched. So if the Amoonguss can break through the flinch chance, I think this Great Tusk might be getting put to sleep here.
Yeah, so there is the electric move that goes into the Gyarados, so that's a really nice safe option, especially when you know the Gyarados has no Protect. So you can just kind of freely go into the Volt Switch. Either if the Gyarados stays in, you do a huge amount of damage if it doesn't Terra, or if it switches out, you can still pivot out as well to get in something new, because the Great Tusk, which is the only thing that resists it, is already on the field. So a really safe kind of play from Eric right at the moment. As the Flutter Mane comes in, activating the Booster Energy, boosting its special attack, and another Spore comes out for this Amoonguss
Oh, no.
into the Great Tusk now as well.
Nap time for all the Pokemon on Leonardo's side of the field. It's a very unfortunate time to be taken out because this Flutter Mane coming in is going to be dealing super effective damage, and with the Great Tusk unable to Terra because the Gyarados has gone for the Terra Poison, it's going to be taking super effective hits from this Flutter Mane if it chooses to go for any Fairy type moves onto that slot.
So Gyarados is coming in now for the Amoonguss. Having taken that little bit of Rock Slide chip, it's probably healed that all back up now thanks to its Regenerator ability. Gyarados comes in like a kind of a perfect switch at the moment here. Great Tusk can't wake up at this turn. You're lowering the attack stats of both these physical attackers too. Let's see if this Gyarados ends up waking up this turn, as it might be able to here, as the Fluttermane goes for another substitute. Again, a very lovely, just safe play here. And yes, it is. The taunt does come out.
Well, that does stop the opposing Gyarados from going for something like a Thunder Wave or a Taunt, but at this stage, I think the Flutter Mane is just sitting so nice and safe behind that substitute. Great Tusk did take its first turn of sleep, so it can wake up this turn. And of course, the Amoonguss is hiding in the back, but there's just not very much that Leonardo on the field currently can hit that Amoonguss for super effective damage. And, you know, we can see that he's contemplating switching out into Dragonite, which can actually hit it for really hard damage.
Yeah, to be honest, even though Leonardo has a lot of sleeping Pokemon, really, he's still in like a nice position because he does have two healthy Pokemon in the back, and he has the potential for his Great Tusk to wake up this turn as well. But it's still kind of locked into that Rock Slide, and it is going to take another turn of sleep.
Oh, that's really unfortunate for Leonardo because the Flutter Mane is going to come out and hit it with a Moonblast, and that is easily enough to knock out this Great Tusk. Great Tusk not really having the greatest of special defenses, and that's a key physical attacker gone from Leonardo's side of the field.
Waterfall should be enough here to delete the substitute from Eric's Flutter Mane, kind of leaving it a little bit more vulnerable to whatever Leonardo has in the back. However, with the Terra Poison already revealed here, there's no kind of potential to for Dragonite, for instance, to Terra out of the Fairy type weakness in its Dragon type move. So yes, Flutter Mane is kind of forced to come in here from Leonardo. Now, I don't think we've actually seen the interaction between the two Flutter Manes as to kind of who is faster at the moment. And especially with Booster Energy boosting special attack on Eric's end, we know it's not trained to be at maximum speed. Its special attack stat is higher. So this interaction here could be quite a key moment in this game.
Flutter Mane being, Flutter Mane on Leonardo's side also being a part Ghost type means that it doesn't care about any fake outs from this newly switched in Iron Hand. So if Leonardo's Flutter Mane is faster, it is going to be able to knock out Eric's Flutter Mane. I don't think actually Eric's gone for a Terra option so far. So the Flutter Mane could potentially go for Terra just to remove its Ghost type weakness, but the Iron Hands is going to switch out for the Amoonguss, which has gotten a lot of its health back from that Regenerator.
Yeah, exactly. Almost like back to where we started anyway. And yep, there's the Terra you speak of, Zoe. It's the Flutter Mane. Going into that Terra Fairy, again, a really nice, just safe option for Eric here because it suddenly eliminates the option of Leonardo getting a KO with a Shadow Ball and should be able to take this Moonblast that comes out. But it's into the Amoonguss slot, so another great switch from Eric.
Yeah, this Amoonguss taking it really, really well, but the Shadow Ball is going to come out and knock out this Flutter Mane, which could not Terra out of its Ghost type weakness because the Gyarados already took it. The Waterfall just doing a very small amount of damage to that Amoonguss. So fantastic switch in, and the Amoonguss, I think, you know, with the, was that a Citrus Berry? Yeah, I couldn't see it behind the Gyarados, but the Amoonguss is really, really healthy. I don't think it's actually taken, it's ended the turn on almost the same amount of health as when it came in.
Yeah, exactly. Eric's just doing such a great positioning game. Like, if you want to look back on, like, learn how to kind of position your team into, like, the best position, you really want to watch Eric's game. Not just this game, but, like, all of his games, especially in the UIC champion being last year as well. It just really shows off a masterclass of how you kind of use your team to be in the best advantage and position it in the best way as well. So, Iron Hands comes in again. Amoonguss healing much more of that Regenerator. Nice safe protect here. No reason not to either. There's no boosting Gyarados can do, as yet another Waterfall just goes straight into that slot.
That Iron Hand switching is really cool because the Dragonite with the multi-scale cannot protect and is going to get flinched if it takes a fake out, unlike Inner Focus, which doesn't. But I think was that Dragonite locking into Rock Slide. Yes, so Leonardo recognizing that Rock Slide flinching is the only chance of winning, but also conceding that it's going to take a lot of Rock Slides to actually win and a lot of flinches. So really well played from Eric there, just, you know, positioning his Pokemon and making sure that they're always in a really good position to get healed back up.
Yeah, it was excellent. Like, Eric just gave Leonardo like no room to maneuver in that game too. And I feel like the main difference in that game too, because Eric seemed just much more dominant there, is because Leonardo didn't bring his Chi Yu, which obviously boosted the power of his physical hitters like the Great Tusk and that Dragonite. And with it not being there, it meant that it was so much harder to just dent the team, and Amoonguss was just kept switching out, healing up again, came back in. There wasn't much to kind of offer a lot of offensive threats to it again, because the Chien-Pao wasn't there for the Ice Spinner too. So just excellently played by Eric, to be honest.
The Iron Hands was really a key Pokemon for Eric, because he was able to bait out that Terror really early on from the Gyarados, meaning that the Dragonite then was unable to go for the Terror normal and a super powerful extreme speed. But also Iron Hands with this fighting type coverage, even if the Dragonite had gone for a Terror normal, Iron Hands being naturally so bulky, it would have probably survived it and then hit back with a super effective fighting type move.
Yeah, like it was so bulky throughout the entire time. There's nothing that was really hitting it, was there? Like, and we saw the Fluttermane do come on the field for Leonardo at some point, but just at the wrong time when the Iron Hands wasn't there, which just shows how the Eric has just played this game so well. I think what could have kind of maybe changed up a little bit is, again, kind of Leonardo trying to kind of save his Terror for a little bit later, switch out his Gyarados, use it as a positioning tool like Eric was doing, like switching it out, saving the Intimidate, and making the most of his Choice Scarf and Choice Band that he was using, because it made Eric so much safer to be able to just lock into certain moves, because he knew once a Great Tusk or the Dragonite had moved, they had to use that same move again.
Yeah, very few Pokemon on Leonardo's side had Protect, and then there was no Spore immunities besides the Gyarados going for the Taunt. But of course, because Gyarados did not have Protect, it was vulnerable in that game to that Fake Out and then Spore going into that slot. So, you know, I think Eric's just recognizing from Team Preview, oh, actually, nothing is immune to Spore, so I'm just going to put everything to sleep. So, you know, really good, really well done from Eric, just identifying the things that he can do to just, you know, carve out a path to victory there.
100%. Like, Amoonguss is such a threat in this format at the moment, and that goes to show, like, that you need, like, a Terra Grass somewhere or a Safety Goggles to be able to deal with it a little bit more effectively. And on Leonardo's team, it was kind of Chien-Pao with that Ice Spinner at the moment, where, and even then, Amoonguss has such a great natural bulk. It is able in a lot of cases to survive an Ice Spinner. Yep. So, like, it's kind of, Eric, if you're Leonardo, you're kind of stuck as to how you want to deal with this, because he was kind of playing the game where he had to kind of accept he was going to take a Spore to trade off for some damage. And at the end of the day, especially when you then take 2 turns of sleep instead of 1, that trade just doesn't become worth it.
Yeah, the Amoonguss also, not Amoonguss. I've totally lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was going to say, but it was going to be something about the Amoonguss. Oh yes, the Terra Water from the Amoonguss. Just,
yeah.
You know, really, I think game 1, Eric did Terra that Amoonguss really early on, and then once he went for the Terra Water, there was just nothing that Leonardo could hit it for super effective damage. And then combined with the Gyarados just constantly bouncing in and out, dropping the Chien-Pao until it was at -2. And by that stage, the Chien-Pao was more of a support for his team with his ability than actually being able to deal any sort of heavy physical damage.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And when you look at the 2 teams that we see here, they're not kind of entirely unusual. You know, we've seen Eric's team quite a lot on stream over the last couple of days. Leonardo's team a little bit more unusual, but maybe a bit more of a throwback to earlier on in the regulation set C with the Chien-Pao Dragonite kind of combination. And we've seen, like, often kind of combined with, say, Palafin balance stuff, but here it's a little bit more offensive, but also kind of limiting your options in terms of how flexible the team can be. And maybe this is why Eric's sort of team is so popular at the moment. It seems to just have a really nice matchup into what was previously popular.
Yes, the choice, that's the danger of sometimes having choiced Pokemon, is that your opponent in this open team sheet format sees that you are choiced and you cannot protect. And once they see what move you've locked yourself into, they can, with smart switching, can just dance around those moves and, you know, take very little damage like we saw in those 2 games.
Yeah, like, looking to the rock size world, wasn't doing too much. I think I would have liked to say maybe a headlong rush, kind of just targeting down a slot, because then maybe you get it wrong, but next turn you could still threaten a lot of damage going forward. But the Gyarados was such a key piece for Eric to be able to switch in and out. It wasn't taking much damage. Even for rock slides, the best option Great Tusk had, like, it was taking 25, 30%, like, really not a lot, to be honest. To be fair for Leonardo, like, he didn't get any flinches, I don't think, with his rock slides, which he could have got, and he got that full paralysis in game 1. So if it weren't for that, he would have taken that game.
I think that was why Leonardo was really hesitant to lock his Great Tusk into any sort of ground type moves, because he knows that the Gyarados is hiding in the back, and if he locks into those ground type moves, that Great Tusk just cannot hit the Gyarados, and it's you know, it has to switch out and then switch back in. And Great Tusk being a little bit more frail on the special side, and with that staring down on Flutter Mane. Now Eric's Flutter Mane was a little bit slower than Leonardo's one, because we saw it go off, but then the Moonblast from Leonardo hit into the Amoonguss in that second game, and then followed up the Gyarados, and the Amoonguss just restored all of his health back from that Citrus Berry, so all that hard work got erased.
Exactly. Yeah, that's such a good point. Like, even if Leonardo targeted like the correct slot, Eric was playing in such a safe way in that if Leonardo targeted correctly, he'd have taken more damage, but he would still be in the position to do what he set out to do in that turn. Like the defensive kind of terrestrialization on the Flutter Mane at the end of that game 2 there to be able to take a potential Shadow Ball a lot better, or the switching away from that Gyarados into the Amoonguss, keeping the Amoonguss healthy, etc. It made it so it was so much easier, and it reduced the burden on Eric to need to protect, because a lot of his Pokemon didn't actually have it. The Gyarados, the Iron Hands, the Amoonguss, none of those on his team have protect. But if you keep them so healthy, you're not pressured to use it.
No. The Flutter Mane is also quite cool that that substitute move slot is actually really rising in usage. We've seen it many, many times on stream this weekend. And I think each time, I believe, it's always gotten a win. I think that's the track record, so looks like substitute Flutter Mane is the call. And, you know, it's really understandable because Amoonguss is just at such high usage right now, and with the substitute, you can keep yourself safe from that. And, you know, the next turn, I think there was an earlier game yesterday where a player went for substitute and then protect, and that was Maddie Morgan and I have forgotten.
Giovanni Piscitelli?
Yes. So, you know, Giovanni constantly going for the substitute and then protect, and, you know, forcing Maddie to waste all these turns, doubling into the Flutter Mane to try and get rid of that substitute. So, you know, substitute Flutter Mane really coming in.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it just makes your matchup as a Flutter Mane into Amoonguss a lot better, or any particular kind of status moves that kind of head its way. And as we saw Eric use it, he used it to kind of make the most of those sleep turns, where he didn't need to attack that kind of initial turn where a lot of Leonardo's team was sleeping. He kind of used it as an opportunity to save it for a time where things would have waked up a little bit more, and the damage potential was suddenly there again.
Yeah, and we have just gotten confirmation that the interview is now ready, so we are going to cut to Eric and hear from him himself.
Hello, Pokemon trainers. Thank you so much, Zoe. I'm here with your winner from that round, Eric Rios. How are you doing, Eric?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, good. So, going into talking about those two games there, in that first game, there are a couple of critical hits that landed on your Pokemon, but you were still able to claw it back. So what was going on there?
Game 1 was a bit difficult because I get 2 critical hits on Among Us, I think, yeah. Yeah, I know that Dragonite has a lot of powerful with Choice Band, with Aerial Ace. So I was thinking, okay, Chien-Pao is less 1, I can take double hits, but didn't expect that crit. And the situation was difficult for me. Then I had to try to win the game with predicting the change from the switching from Great Tusk to Dragonite, then D-Wave Dragonite, because I know at the end we'll be at a situation like when Great Tusk with Chase Scarf and Rock Slide, or the Headlong Rush can put pressure with the Extreme Speed Dragonite. So I had to predict that switch and try to maybe Dragonite paralyze that turn and try to win.
Yeah, and that's what happened in the end.
Yeah, I had to do that because I got the crits in my Among Us. I didn't sleep the Dragonite, so I had to try it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it went well in the end. And then in game 2, a bit more decisive win for you. It seemed like you were able to position the way you wanted to with the Spores and then setting up the substitute with Flutter Mane. Was that your game plan going in?
Yeah, when I see the lead, I was thinking, okay, I will do the same because I'm pretty comfortable with the Iron Hands plus Among Us lead, because when you see that the Leo team, Flutter Mane is super important because it's the only one that they have that is Ghost type and can take the extreme speeds. So and also Gyarados because he has Chase Scarf greatest. But the problem with that is all the Leo teams is super offense. I need to try to stop it with the sleep, with the Spore sleep with Among Us, and try to avoid the double with the fake out turn 1. So that's why I lead with the same. I have also ball switch to switch my Iron Hands to another Mon to take the advantage. Yeah, he changed the lead. He put Gyarados. I was predicting that because it's the only way to stop Among Us with Taunt. But I'm still okay because he don't have protects. I think he have 2 protects on his team. So I was okay with the fake out turn 1 and Spore. I was thinking, okay, if I go with fake out and Spore Gyarados, he can go with Headlong Rush into my Iron Hands, but I can take the hit. So I'm okay with that. So I can Spore the only Mon that can stop my Spores Among Us and take that hit. Then I can switch out Gyarados and Spore greatest, and then I can just play with that.
Sure. Yeah. And that was something that seemed to happen as well in your match we featured on stream yesterday against Barish, where he didn't have that many protects, but you did. And clearly that's a play style that you prefer, rather than the hyper offense. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, against Barish was the similar situation because he was playing hyper offense with Sun. I did the same. I don't remember if I played Among Us. I think so. No, didn't play Among Us. I was playing with Tinglu Iron Hands. But Iron Hands was super important with because of the same reason. He has no protects. I can just fake out. I can just positioning and trying to win in the late game.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you so much pivoting options, I guess, in your game. And a Pokemon we've seen really rise up in this tournament is Gyarados.
Yeah.
And a Pokemon we've seen really reduce in usage is that Palafin. They're obviously both water types. Why, for you, does Gyarados have the edge over Palafin?
I prefer always to play Intimidate because I am a big fan of balanced teams.
Yeah.
And Arcanine is super good, but at the same time, I was trying Chiyu with Nasty Plot, and yeah, Chiyu with Nasty Plot can take a lot of matchups. Arcanine is... He only set with Will-O-Wisp support, with Safety Aggles or Bravery. So I was trying Gyarados instead of Arcanine. I think Gyarados now is the best Intimidate Mon in the metagame. That's why Bundle is... That's why people is using Bundle now to stop Gyarados.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I play Gyarados and people didn't bring Bundle, I feel pretty safe because I can Intimidate, I can just play with switchings. It's more safe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the fewer bundle running around as well. We still see it today and over the weekend, but yeah, that's a really good thing to call out there. So, going into the later rounds of this, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good, yeah.
Good.
Didn't prepare anything for this tournament. I'm playing for fun and maybe take some money, so I finally made 10-4. I think I have good resistance, so let's see if I can make top 8. If not, top 16 is okay for me, so
yeah,
let's
see. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I remember interviewing you on stage at Utrecht when you won that event as well, and maybe you'll be going all the way. We'll have to see. 2 final quick questions. Favorite Pokemon?
Of all time or now?
All time.
All time, Ludicolo.
Ludicolo.
Yeah.
Ah, that's a real immediate answer. Why'd you like Ludicolo?
Because when I played 2014, I was using Ludicolo with the standard teams. I didn't bring Ludicolo to Worlds that year, but I was playing a lot of local tournaments with Ludicolo, and that's why it's my favorite Mon, because I have won a lot of tournaments with that.
Ah, amazing. Great. I think you said your favorite Pokemon at the moment is Iron Hands.
Iron Hands,
And essentially, they both have their sort of hands up in the air at all times. And finally, Eric, any shout-outs you want to give?
Yeah, shout out to all my family, friends that have been supporting me from home, all people who have been supporting me from this tournament and every tournament.
Yeah, well, there you go. Eric Rios, an absolutely phenomenal player, taking that round there. We're going to throw it back over to the casters now, actually, where we have another little segment for you. Thanks so much, Eric. Throwing it back to the casters.